election censorship, they're going to clamp down even more on online discourse and lead it in very particular directions. They want Americans in particular to be at each other's throats. Textbook divide and conquer, among other things, though. I mean, they have this whole war on domestic terror apparatus, all this stuff about civil war, and we need this and that. Regular Americans are generally on the same side. And they want to divide everyone, and it's all through fear. And they've been doing this psyop after psyop after psyop, whether it's 9/11, COVID, you name it. I mean, it's all fear-based and wants to alienate you from your local community. Like, again, it's about self-reliance at the local level. That's a big part of the response, but it's also, getting people, not just yourself, though obviously that's where you start, but making sure that the fear doesn't anchor in to where you are based.
Bitcoin, created by Satoshi Nakamoto during the 2008 financial crisis, was a revolutionary decentralized digital currency that would free people from governments and central banks. The goal was to develop digital gold with a 21 million supply cap and the world's most powerful computing network. Schur's gain was free from physical gold's mobility, indivisibility, and inflation. Critics question how Bitcoin can be used for anything, challenging its money status. Some Bitcoiners use MicroStrategies. In many recent interviews, Michael Saylor portrayed Bitcoin as a digital property rather than a currency. He likened Bitcoin ownership to owning a valuable piece of art or a block of Manhattan buildings, underlining that no one would expect the owner to use their art or building to buy coffee or groceries. Brittany argues that many Bitcoiners, including notable Bitcoin aficionados, are tricked into thinking BlackRock and Wall Street players are good for this field. Whitney believes we may have fallen prey to the numbers game and neglected what matters most, with catastrophic consequences if we continue.
Well, I think it's important to say, too, that I think there's a lot of people in the Bitcoin media space that will never talk about this or what you just mentioned. And I think a lot of that is because a lot of money and effort has been put into specifically homogenizing media discourse in the Bitcoin space, because they want Bitcoiners as much as possible to be compliant, while Larry Fink and his ilk do what they want with Bitcoin and make it what they want it to be, so that people are content with number go up and sort of the Saylor-esque talking points that have gotten a lot of, a lot of people have heard those versus what you just mentioned, from example. There needs to be a cultural shift in Bitcoin in the opposite direction of what this Diego guy from Rootstock said, where he's like, we need to drop the whole, stop fiscal irresponsibility of the banks and central banks and, be a challenge and threat to their power. We have to drop that if we want to get rich. I mean, that's the mentality there. And I feel like the Saylor mentality really isn't that different from that. We have to push people in the other direction, because if we go in the direction they're pushing those, people to go in, people that want to drop the ethos or whatever and make Bitcoin just a tool for Wall Street. No. If we let that happen, very bad things happen. And there has to be a fight. And there's a specific effort that's been launched against people that hold Bitcoin to try and get them to be compliant in that sense. And that's through, controlling the discourse in the media space. There needs to be a desire among Bitcoiners to return to the original ethos, not the opposite. There needs to be a fight for that. People need to care about that again.
Whitney and Mark have been working on an effort to force Americans to accept stable coins and digital tokens controlled by commercial banks. In a highly informative joint post on Bitcoin Magazine earlier this year, the duo revealed how Fluent Finance, a former partner of Farmington State Bank, a small rural bank embroiled in the FTX collapse scandal, has been building CBDC rails. The Fed's public rejection of a directly issued CBDC in the U.S. will ease the simulated fear of governments and central banks programming your currency to expire. The status quo hopes that the American public, especially those segments, will not notice this false victory and the stable coin deposit token system to be implemented in place of a direct issued digital dollar. Whatever the reason for moving the U.S. and much of the world into this new financial paradigm, the same old bankers and companies, including those who were scrutinized in the FTX scandal, will maintain and gain unprecedented control over the financial activity and behavior of every American and whoever else they dollarize in the TFTF interview. Here are additional interview excerpts. Whitney cautions that Bitcoin is the only thing that can defend us from this evil, but if we let it be co-opted, it will be impossible.
Chime in really quick. So part of what we're talking about here, part of the way to like defeat this apparatus that as Mark referred to it, so much of what they do, including like their media ops, in efforts to control discourse, but also just like getting people to onboard to stuff when they otherwise wouldn't. It all runs on fear, right? And like all the stuff that happened during COVID, people fell in line because of fear. It's all fear-based, pretty much everything they do. A great way to not fall into that is not be afraid of these people, no matter what psyop they throw at you. And I think this year, election year, not just in the US, but in much of the world, unprecedented fear-based psyops are going to be coming one after the other until they get enough people to comply and acquiesce. And the way to, get around that is to not fall into it. It's the trap, and a lot of it is the media discourse. And I think, the more controlled online discourse becomes, the greater the effort will be to use it to get people to be very afraid of what's happening. Yeah. And if you unplug a little bit and spend more time in like the actual world, you are much less likely to feel that way. And I think that's why during COVID, they wanted so much of our discourse to be online. And then they took even greater control of the online discourse. And we know now, under the guise of election censorship, they're going to clamp down even more on online discourse and lead it in very particular directions. They want Americans in particular to be at each other's throats. Textbook divide and conquer, among other things, though. I mean, they have this whole war on domestic terror apparatus, all this stuff about civil war, and we need this and that. Regular Americans are generally on the same side, and they want to divide everyone, and it's all through fear. And they've been doing this psyop after psyop after psyop, whether it's 9/11, COVID, you name it. I mean, it's all fear-based and wants to alienate you from your local community. Like, again, it's about self-reliance at the local level. That's a big part of the response, but it's also, getting people, not just yourself, though obviously that's where you start, but making sure that the fear doesn't anchor in to, where you are based. I think that's a big part of it. That's all I wanted to say. Thanks. So Palantir was originally Total Information Awareness, and then they tried to rename it Terrorist Information Awareness, but Total Information Awareness is what they always wanted. And that's surveilling everyone for everything. And it's surveilling people at the biological level, like to stop pandemics before they start narrative. That was part of it. It was also about financial surveillance. It was surveilling what you buy at the grocery store. That is literally what they are doing again. But it's a mix of public entities and private entities that are all in these involved in these opaque partnerships. So it's not one clearly defined program at DARPA like it was originally supposed to be. But the goal is to completely erode privacy, to completely surveil everything, and prevent X before it happens. X being literally anything they don't want to happen or say they don't want to happen. So prevent crime before it happens, pre-crime. William Barr, Attorney General under Trump, legalized pre-crime in the United States. It will come. They've set it up, and they want it all to run on your data. They want to prevent, they'll say it's for terrorist attacks, it's for pandemics, it's for crisis X, Y, and Z, it's for climate calamity. We have to prevent it before it happens. It's all algorithmic based, but they can only manufacture consent for that if there's a climate of fear.
Whitney has brought up a lot of important points and questions. Are we losing sight of why Bitcoin was created? Are forces like BlackRock bad things that we have to deal with in order for Bitcoin to become popular? Please share your thoughts, opinions, and observations in the section below. Also, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications to get more videos. Thanks for watching.